Okay, so thank you, Marcus. Next speaker is Paul Varghese. I think that's got his name right. He's a BIM consultant at Verified 3D. He's worked with Xinaps and Verified 3 product line over the last 5 years and has helped to develop the product and work with lots of different consultants as well. So thanks, Paul.
Hey guys, I hope you guys are all enjoying the event so far and the talks. Coming up, it's already there. Today I'll be giving a topic on simplifying and standardizing work processes for automated data mining of BIM models. It's quite a bit in relation to all the talks we have had so far about data governance, data quality, checking the models, checking how good they are from a data governance point of view. A bit about me. Well, I'm Paul Varghese. I've been working for Xinaps for the past 6 years, taken on multiple different roles. Started off as a technical consultant, ended up as a BIM manager, went through the phase of a project manager and so forth. And a bit about our team. Well, we are located in Delft, a small city in the Netherlands, close to the TU Delft campus. Our team composes of 14 plus international members. We are known mainly for our products that we have published over the years, the main one being Verified. We also have a group of 4 team leads, our CEO Frank at the back, along with Christian, who's also at our booth in booth 14, and me. Well, going back to the topic of data standardization and trying to automate it, well, we first need to understand the current workflows as to how people actually mine information, process it, and visualize it. To do so, let's first define what we mean by data mining, processing, and visualization. Well, in my view, it all starts off with a data source. A data source could be, for example, a file that composes of various different elements, BIM objects, and so forth. These objects are then taken over for mining, and now mining is where you're trying to seek out the information that you require for the next phase, which is processing. Processing is where you're starting to understand the information that you have mined, trying to see what is useful for further on rules and checks. Well, this is normally done through statistical analysis, but once that takes place, you can then start visualizing the results in a clear way. Normally you use Power BI or different kinds of platforms that help to stimulate that. Now, how does the current process look like when it comes to data mining and automating it? Well, as mentioned, you always start off with a data source. A data source typically contains categories, families, types, and instances. Now, when you have the data source, which could be a Revit or IFC file, this can then be brought over for data mining either through Dynamo or through Revit schedules. Once within that phase of data mining, you can then push it over to data processing. Typically, Excel is the most commonly used tool still. And then once you move away from processing to visualization, you see the wide adoption of Power BI and these fantastical dashboards that highlight the health of a building, how far it's progressing over time, and so forth. Now, that may have looked like a simple process, but there are challenges to that. The first being Revit. Revit itself is quite complex. This is what Revit used to look like back in 2018. It contained a lot of objects and elements. Since then, we are now on the 22nd version of Revit. It's built up, and there are a lot of options and possibilities that exist. Hence, you need a good understanding of the tool itself. The next one is with Dynamo itself. Dynamo itself requires a lot of industry-specific knowledge as to how to use it. You need visual programming skills along with the understanding that once you create a Dynamo script, it may not be reproducible or compatible with another situation. What's next? I also mentioned along with Dynamo for the data mining phase, you can also use Revit. That's the Revit schedules. This is an example of how a Revit schedule looks like. Again, to create this, you need a good understanding of how Revit works. You need to understand how the model has been set up. So it's not that straightforward to straight away plug something in and get a result. Lastly, Excel for processing your information. This is an example from one of our clients or our vendors as to how they process information for after data mining. What they do is they have a table with all different kinds of guidelines as to which the data should meet from a qualitative point of view. And this is completely based on perception as to how someone grades or assesses these criteria. So it is based upon perception rather than anything qualitative or quantitative. As such, it's inaccurate and you can't really trust it. With regards to Power BI, I wouldn't say it's complex. It's more that you need a data source or some kind of an output, an Excel output or something on which you can then visualize the results of, for example, how healthy is your model, how has it progressed over time, the various key performance indicators that you wish to look at. Now, how does this workflow look like when we look at some of our competitors in the space? Here we have two different examples of Solibri and Autodesk Navisworks. If you take the role of an architect, an engineer, or an MEP designer, you're all starting off with a data source, which is in this case is a file and a Tekla file, a Revit file, or an IFC file. When you're bringing it over to these environments for data mining and processing and visualization, you run through the aspects of issue management, clashing, quantity takeoffs, along with, in the Solibri case, of rules, checks, and properties. So in most cases, what you're doing is you're acting like a system integrator, trying to combine different solutions to meet your goals. And in all of those cases, there is an aspect of data loss that can take place. Not only that, once the information is checked or seen for its quality, you bring it back to one of the issue management trackers, and then the cycle repeats till you come to the final stage. Well, that is one solution, but again, it is complex. So how can you simplify that? Well, that's what I'm trying to present, a way in which you can automate that workflow. It's a 4-step process or a 3-step process, however you look at it. Starts off with model coordination, ends with reporting, where in model coordination, you take a data file, a data source, IFC or Revit, from a cloud-based common data environment. You bring it over to Verified, which is a SaaS solution. After which, you can take it over for classifying, which in other terms is you're trying to mine the data or extract what you require. Now, this can be done through two different ways, either through filters and the element properties, or also through something which we are developing called the Verified Exchange Portal, which is a library of information that we are sharing publicly. And the next is bring it over for validation, where you can make use of rules and checks to check how accurate is the information that's there within the model and so forth. Lastly, you can report the information through Power BI by exporting it as a CSV file. Now, how does this look like? This is an example of filters. I've taken one of the most standard BIM projects that exists. It's a hospital project. I think you guys are all familiar with it. On the left side of the screen, you see a filters section. Now, this is something that a company can specify, but it also can be based upon a standard like Uni class, Omni class, Kobe, and so forth. Now, based upon those standards, you can automatically filter out the various elements in your model. So you're starting to data mine the project. Here you get to see a visualization, for example, of the beams within the project, how many there are in relation to the rest of the elements, but also what all those filters contain, so the results of them. And if I, for example, select one of the objects within the model, you get to see the various properties of that object. I also mentioned previously something called the Verified Exchange Portal. That's where we are building up a library of information, which is in regards to various different BIM standards such as COBE, Uniclass, Uniformat, any kind of ILS guidelines or guidelines which the BIM community is working with. This is something which we are building and producing for free, where through this system you can easily drag and drop it or reuse these filters for your model, so that it's easier for you to seek the information you require when mining it out of your models. Now next, I told you we have a 3-step process: classify, validate, report. This is the validation aspect. This is where you can make use of rules and checks to start processing the information in your model. So here we have an example of a property check and a clash check, where in the clash check you're clashing, for example, the beams and the columns against each other. You get to see what all is clashing and what all is the results of those clashes and where all they could be located. Not only that, you can also do presence checks, free space checks, use all kinds of Booleans, such as if something exists, then this should be the result, and so forth. So it's very versatile and can meet your needs. Not only that, very important for the visualization aspect, you can use the results of the validated items for which can be then exported as a CSV file. Here you get to see a quantity takeoff breakdown of, for example, all the beams that are either failing or passing the check. You not only get to see where they are located, but what all elements they belong to. Now, this is a field which is completely based upon how you set up your rules and checks environment. You can add more columns to this list, and they would automatically populate. So in conclusion, we know that the model checking process is quite complex. Not only are projects complex, but they involve a lot of stakeholders, and there's a lack of digitalization. Hence, that's where we try to come in by simplifying the current work process, by starting off with model coordination, then going to classification, validation, and reporting. We make use of that through Verified, where you can do your classification based upon filters and element properties, your rule-based checking, which I previously showed, and then if there's any results which need to be, for example, shared with any of the stakeholders, you can make use of any issue management solution that we are integrated with. So at the core, we try to position ourselves between the planning and pre-construction phase. And not only that, we try to work with different suppliers and vendors within the industry. We also like to connect and integrate with different platforms, such as various different common data environments, BIM 360, Autodesk Cloud Connect, along with various issue tracking solutions, and later on in the future, there'll be a connection to the Verified Exchange portal. So yeah, we help to simplify, standardize, and automate your work process. And if you guys are interested, do visit us at booth 14. You can also get a handbook. It's basically a step-by-step process of how you can check your models. It's written in collaboration with Maze Group, Arcadis, ArcDocs, and so forth. So do check it out. And if there are any questions, well, I thought that there would be a moment now, but if there's a moment later, we can check it out then. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed it.